Hello, my name is Kira Lowenhar.
And I'm Michael Guidi, and tonight we will be facilitating the Student Government's live candidate feed, brought to you by CSTV.
Tonight we will be talking to prospective 2017-2018 elected officers. Our first candidate is Zach Curtis, who is running for Chief Financial Officer. Hi Zach, how are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thanks. To get things started, let's start with the first question. Why do you want to be the next SGA Chief Financial Officer?
Well, I think I want to be the next Chief Financial Officer because, first of all, I've spent the last year and a half serving as a member of Financial Board, so I think I have the experience, but also I just think it's a really good opportunity to advocate on behalf of the students.
Okay, perfect.
What prior campus experience do you have that qualifies you for the Chief Financial Officer position?
All right, well, as I just said, I've spent the last year and a half on the SGA Financial Board, so that's dealing with clubs, dispersing money at the end of the year, budget hearings, all that. I'm also currently serving as an RA and serve on the board of directors for a local nonprofit.
Okay. As Chief Financial Officer, you will be responsible for managing a large budget. What experience do you have with budgeting, aside from Financial Board?
Okay, so aside from Financial Board, really that's where my nonprofit experience comes in. For the last 2 years, I've been working with Access to Independence, which is a nonprofit that advocates for people with disabilities, both in our community and nationally. So it's actually a very comparable budget that we work with, and I know and have the experience there with, program budgeting and trying to figure out where money goes and what's most appropriate.
Thank you. Describe a time someone was unhappy with a decision you made and how you handled it.
That's a really good question. I'll use a work example. There's been times as an RA where I've had time commitment issues, conflicts with scheduling, and I've had to go to my boss and explain why certain things were happening the way they are. That can be really challenging, and I think the way I've handled it in the past and the way I would continue to handle it is just by being really upfront with everybody. If people know why I'm making the decision, I think usually that alleviates some of the displeasure.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the Chief Financial Officer is a very time-consuming position, as you probably know. So describe how you manage your time effectively.
All right. Well, for the last 2 years, I've been already scheduling out my time pretty precisely. I think definitely continuing with that. If you know exactly what you're doing every day, each hour, things get a lot smoother. But also just, I think the most important part is going to be being honest with myself, knowing how long things are going to take, and really focusing on just keeping up with those commitments.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for coming out,
Thank you.
and good luck with the rest of your campaigning.
Thank you.
We will be right back with the candidates for Vice President. welcome back. We are now joined by two candidates for Vice President. We have Gloria Hulady and Taylor O'Halloran. How are you?
Good, how are you? Good,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. We're going to start with you, Taylor. Since the SGA Vice President works directly with clubs, what experience do you have working with diverse groups of people and bringing them together?
Okay, so I serve on the SGA Student Leadership Cabinet, so I'm the athletic representative for there, and that's made up of about 12 to 15 different student leaders from each cohort on campus, so obviously a big, diverse group of people. And I've had the opportunity to schedule events, work with those people closely, and reach out to their groups of the community of the Cortland campus, and work with a large group of people that is made up of people from all over Cortland's kind of divisions. So I've had the opportunity through the Student Leadership Cabinet to work with a lot of different people at once and kind of collaborate on everything and work things out in a diverse group. So I'd say that is the best.
Thank you. Gloria, I'm going to ask you the same question. Since the SGA Vice President works directly with clubs, what experience do you have working with diverse groups of people and bringing them together?
So for me, during my sophomore year, I worked as the treasurer for the Pan-African Student Association. For short, it's called PASA. And PASA creates awareness about Africa and also helps people who are interested in learning more about Africa. So it promotes Pan-Africanism. And part of our duties are to ensure that we're being diverse and encouraging people who are not, people who don't identify as Africans or people who do not identify as African Americans to join PASA. So the way that I worked with PASA as the treasurer was that I ensured that for our events, I would collaborate with other clubs and, promote the event to make sure that other people who do not identify as Black or African Americans can also show up to the event and bring us all together so we can learn about diversity, we can learn about Pan-Africanism, and learn about Africa and what Africa has to offer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question I'm going to ask is, I'm going to start with you, Taylor. So the Vice President is expected to assume responsibilities when the President is unable to. So please tell us a time where you took on a leadership responsibility when you were called upon.
Actually, this happened just recently, and it's a current project I'm working on. I am the Student Athletic Advisory President, and I also serve on the SUNYAC, the conference-wide Student Athletic Advisory Committee. And when I went to the SUNYAC conference last year, we decided to create an event called 10 Million Yards for Yardley. And they were calling for one leader from each school to be in charge of coordinating the event on campus. And I was only a sophomore at the time, but I said, sure, why not? Let me take that up on Cortland's campus. And since last April, I've been working on that event. It's this April 30th, so it's coming up soon. And I've had the chance to work with administration, all the different groups on campus. I've got to speak at RHA, at Senate, at a bunch of different places to kind of gather everyone together. And it's been a lot. It's definitely been difficult, but I think it's been a really good experience, and I've gained a lot of leadership skill from holding that position on the SUNYAC Student Athletic Advisory Committee. So that's definitely a really good example, and it's still in the process, so
Great.
it's good.
Yeah. I know we're all looking forward to that event, so thank you. And then Gloria, so the Vice President is expected to assume responsibilities when the President is unable to. So please tell us a time that you took on the responsibility and when you were called upon.
So I would say that every day in my life, I take upon myself to be responsible and take up leadership roles. One thing that actually comes up in mind quickly is as the secretary of the Student Government Association, as the current secretary of the Student Government Association, we recently had a winter formal at Greek Peak. And for that event, all the SGA officers were assigned to different duties, and they had to be at Greek Peak before everyone else. So I was the only person on campus who was able to ensure that all the buses were running smoothly and all the buses were able to take students to Greek Peak. So I think that was a big leadership role because I stepped up to the plate when no one was there, and I was able to make sure that students were comfortable, with getting on the bus when no one was there. They had their friends with them, and they just had a safe environment.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Taylor, how would you describe your ability to work with others?
Strong, very strong. Since I was a freshman here at Cortland, and even prior to that in high school, I've always been a leader and worked really well with others. I'm an athlete, so I'm on the golf team, and of course, you have to work as a team when you're on a team and you are in athletics. And those skills that I've gained from being a part of athletics and being the SAC president and the SUNYAC SAC vice president, and just every leadership position I have, I've had to work with a lot of people. Of course, everyone gets frustrated at times with different people, but I've really gained the skills and the knowledge to handle my situations with other people really well. So definitely the one word would be strong, because I can really work well with others in any situation that's given to me.
Gloria, how would you describe your ability to work with others?
I would describe my ability to work with others as very competent, because as an RA in Cheney Hall, and RA stands for resident assistant, I work with a team of staff members to ensure that students are safe, to ensure that we're enforcing policies, SUNY policies, and Res Life policies as well, to promote a safe and healthy environment for everyone. And I think that working as a team can be challenging sometimes, because we all have different personalities, and we all have different backgrounds and attitudes. But just having an open mind, which I honestly do, just having an open mind sets a tone so that you can work well with others. And and another thing is just being able to help others when necessary. That's also part of working as a team. So I think I have all those qualities, and yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Taylor, if you're elected to be the vice president, how would you use your position to effectively create change throughout the campus?
Well, I think being the executive vice president would mean that I'd have a lot of leadership and responsibility on my plate, which is something I would love to have. And to use that to create change on campus, I would definitely, my first goal would be to bring everyone together. I really have a big focus on community. And we do this down in the athletics programs, and what I work for with them is kind of bringing everyone together and focusing on pulling, Greek life with athletics and clubs and SGA and everyone together at the same time. So as in this position, I would hope to really create that sense of community at Cortland and focus on bringing everyone together. And that would be my first major goal of change that I would like. But I think with the responsibilities and the leadership that I would have in that position, I'd be a good advocate, and I'd be able to reach out to administration, a lot of students, different groups on campus, and other student leaders to really work together to advocate for change on campus for many different topics, such as the sexual assault awareness programs that I work with, and just such things as attendance for clubs, attendance for the games, attendance for any event that's going on campus. That's really interesting to get people to go to and to bring everyone together at. So that'd be my way.
Great, thank you. And now, Gloria, if you are elected vice president, how would you use your position to effectively create change throughout the campus?
I think that the vice president has a lot of power, and even just serving as the chair of student senate, you have a lot of power to create change. So for me, I would set realistic goals for myself and reach out to clubs first and encourage clubs to collaborate and engage other students in their club events. Next, I would also work with the executive board and all different offices. So an example for me would be, one initiative that I would take would be working with the director of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity committee to create an education program and encourage others to identify their privileges that they have, and use their privileges to help others that have less privileges on our campus. So that's one thing that I would work on. And with that, I would also reach out to the Multicultural Life and Diversity Office to help, so that the members of that office could assist us in setting up this education program and moving on with that and seeing how we can make little changes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Taylor, what makes you think you will be the best candidate for this position?
Definitely the experience that I've had. Like I said, since freshman year, I've held leadership positions on campus. I have a lot of experience working for the SUNYAC SAC and for the SAC on campus, working with administration. So I have that outreach to administration, and I have the ties to the Cortland community already that I really can build upon. Working in the student leadership cabinet, that's been a great experience, and I've been able to kind of learn more about every cohort on campus. So even though I didn't know about maybe as much of student government as I did before, I now know enough to even be running for a position. And I've learned about Greek life, I've learned about the clubs, I've learned about even those who aren't represented by a specific cohort on campus. So I really think that just from my experience, definitely makes me qualified to be in this position, and I can really bring the experiences that I've had and put them to work in the position and make them work with what I'll be doing as vice president.
Great,
Thank you. And Gloria, what makes you think you will be the best candidate for this position?
I think that I would be the best candidate for this position because first off, I was not born here. I was born in Ghana, West Africa, so I've been exposed to a different set of cultures, and I'm very open to diversity. I embrace diversity a lot, and also I have held various positions on campus, so I think that various positions such as an orientation assistant, an RA, an administrative assistant. So through these positions, I have been able to gain a lot of leadership skills, which I think would be transferable to my position as the vice president. And I also think that through my experiences, I have learned that women empowerment is a very big thing, and I'm all about women empowerment. So by becoming the future vice president, hopefully, then I would be able to use my power to empower others, not only women, but people, all students, especially people in minority groups who feel that, they do not have the power to move up in life. They do not have the power to take up leadership roles on campus. Like, if I can do it, then I believe that everyone else can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. That concludes our portion for the executive vice president. So stay tuned for our chat with the potential SGA presidents.
One experience that I have working with diverse groups of people would be with my internship that I've held for the past 2 years with NYPIRG, the New York Public Interest Research Group. We work on specific topics like voter registration or aid to the hungry and homeless. And how it works is it's just whoever volunteers or holds an internship with there can help. So with a topic like voter registration, it doesn't matter what political party you are aligned with or if you're not aligned with a political party. As long as you are part of that goal to get more people active in voting, you can work for that. And it's really cool to experience and just work alongside people who have different opinions with you. Another time would be last semester. I was a mentor and TA in a core class for international students. So that was really cool because I got to share not only the Cortland college experience, but also the American college experience to them. And it might have been a little different or difficult at times with a language barrier or the cultural barrier, but you find ways to make it work overall, and just planning events for them was really fun. One time that I've stepped up to a leadership role would have been last semester, Cortica weekend. While everyone was cheering on the Red Dragons against Ithaca and our victory, I actually got to go to Albany for the SUNY Student Association conference. And it was really cool to represent Cortland because I got to meet with other student leaders from all 64 of the campuses, and I got to meet with a committee that I'm a part of, and we got to go to workshops and, of course, listen to speakers and hear actual resolutions that were being proposed by individuals, leaders, campuses, and debate over how they would benefit SUNY overall. I'd say that I work with others very well. I think teamwork is very important because everyone should have a seat at the table and everyone's opinion is valid. Everyone has gone through different experiences and has had different upbringings, and they should be able to say what's happening when you're working towards a common goal, and that's what SGA should be all about. So working with others should not be a problem at all. as an executive board candidate, I also have some aspirations for being VP, and they would be increasing communication, inclusion, and engagement. So communication, whether this means between the student body and the student government, or the student government and the administration, I just want to open a channel that should be between the students. And one way that this can be done is with engagement, is getting students more involved in Senate, or getting students more involved in sitting on faculty boards, because we all pay this student fee, so we should have our voice be heard. And especially when these matters pertain to us, it's how our tuition is being spent. So people really need to sit on these boards and realize that their voice matters within the student government and the faculty. Why am I the best candidate?